Hello and welcome to Hearing Your Future, the Coding Your Future podcast. My name is Duncan, I'm your host, and I'm on a mission to help you design, build, test and code your future in computing. In this podcast we'll talk to current and former students of computer science to find out more about their journey from student to professional. What's their story? How are they coding their future? What obstacles have they faced and how did they overcome them? Finally, we ask our guests what advice they would offer their former selves and fellow students and where are they headed next. My guest today is Pedro Sousa. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science with Mathematics and Industrial Experience in 2023 when this episode was recorded.
So I'm Pedro. I come from Portugal. I moved to the UK in 2019 to study at the University of Manchester. So it's been 4 years now that I've been in the country, and missed the good weather, but everything else.
So you arrived here in, was it pre-pandemic? Or
Was it pre-pandemic? Yeah.
Right. 2019.
2019. So I had a year. I had like
Half a year.
I was the first semester, and then was like a month into my second semester. Everything went chaotic, basically.
That was when the chaos started.
Yeah.
So actually, you found a job in when the pandemic had just started. So when we went into lockdown in 2019, and you started your second year.
So I started my second year in 2020.
Yeah, okay, right.
And that's when I had to look for a job. Yeah.
So let's backtrack a bit. So the interesting thing is, I think, is why study computing? Where did that come from? You know, what influenced your decision to study computing?
I think my answer is typically not what you would expect from. I haven't been.
So we should say actually you're computer science and maths, shouldn't we? I forget
Yeah.
to say. So there's a bigger picture here.
Yes, so I do computer science and maths, and there is a reason why I picked both. But again, my background, I was not one of those kids that would love to break the microwave apart to check part. That was not me. My curiosity was not there. I like maths a lot, but I like a lot of other things as well. I like sports. I was really into philosophy, political science, so it was quite messy to pick something to do with. And I thought that the best thing to pick was something that would be kind of like keep the most open doors and not close them. So I always thought, well, I think a computer scientist can become an economist. A computer scientist can become a philosopher.
Keep talking. I'll just close that window.
A computer science can become a manager. I think the transition between computer scientists and mathematics to one of those fields, it's easier than the other way around. If I sign up for an economics degree and then decide I want to be a computer scientist, I feel like there will be more friction if I want to make that change. Yeah. So I was just thinking, okay, so let's go with something that I'm kind of good at, mathematics, but I had no computer science experience, which was chaotic when I got to university. To be honest, I didn't have internet at home until I got to the UK, so it was very much of a shock to come study computer science.
So I guess it was a bit of a leap into the dark in some respects, in that had you done any computing at
Not
school?
at all.
Nothing at all.
Nothing
no
at
coding or anything.
No coding.
So just
nothing.
it came from the maths basically, and this kind of idea that okay, this is a very general subject that can be applied to lots of different things.
I love to read, and I used to read a lot of mostly news, Business Insider, Bloomberg, etc. And I used to see all of these characters that I thought were quite interesting. Back then was the first time that Musk was making actually a big name on the news back in 2019. So it was starting to come up. Now everybody in Portugal knows him, but back then I was the kid that would go with the newspaper and no one else would still know who the hell he is.
Right.
So I think was kind of seeing those patterns of what those people study and the kind of background they had, and I kind of started relating that computer science would enable someone to have a really big impact if they choose to at some point. So that's kind of why I decided to pair maths with computer science.
Okay, good.
Not out of passion, to be honest.
So no, that's interesting. That's an interesting story. So you arrive here in first year. I guess it's a bit of a shock adapting to doing the maths. I guess was pretty much what you expected, or
it was. I thought the maths would actually be easier, but when I came, I started to. So I did one thing that kind of saved my whole semester, which is I went ahead and saw on the slides what we were going to cover throughout the semester. And then I realized that in the weeks, for example, that we approach integration in one of my calculus courses, I realized that the way the slides were made was sort of as a revision, because students study integration here in A-levels. We don't study integration in Portugal in our high school.
Right.
So I was like, okay, so this is week 4 of the semester. I have 3 weeks to understand integration before we get there, because he's just going to sort of revise through it. So that's an example of things that there was a mismatch between the maths taught in one country and the other, and I just had to give myself some time to catch up.
Fill those gaps. Okay.
Yeah.
And the computing, how did you get on with the computing in the first year? Did you enjoy it? Was it what you expected, or?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. In the introduction classes to programming, etc. I think those were very beneficial because it was very sort of just logical thinking to solve problems. The old 30-year project one was a little bit more scary because involved web applications and everything. And
right.
I'm kind of a visual learner, and up to this day, I'm still building about 4 years later, and I'm just my vision of how the internet works and how we build this is just getting a little bit better time by time.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the joint degree is more challenging in some ways, because you get a little bit less exposure to computing, and then when you come to doing a third year project, although you've got that extra skill of doing the maths, you have less experience with doing computational stuff.
Yeah, there is definitely a gap to cover there, and I think it gets more challenging and challenging throughout 3 years, because you do benefit from having a lot of optional courses from each subject. But at some point you start realizing that the context switching that you got to do, you're always switching context between subjects. It's a bit challenging because you cannot be on the same sort of wavelength for studying for exams, because they will require different styles, right? And that was something that I think had the extra amount of challenge if I was doing just one, not the two, basically.
And I know. Maybe we can talk about this a bit later. But I think one of the difficulties with maths is if you stop studying it and then start studying it again, it can be quite hard getting back into it. So you did a year in industry and then came back. Was it easy picking up that maths again, or was it? It's like a way. It's a way of thinking that. It's like if you're not speaking a language, if you stop speaking Portuguese, you eventually lose that skill over a period of time. Is it kind of a bit like that with maths, where you're kind of, if you're not doing it every day, and you come back into your final year after your placement year to do maths again, it's like, oh yeah, I haven't done this for a year. How the hell do I do this?
That's true. I think I tried to mitigate that effect, because I still felt it, same as all my friends that came from placement year. But I was lucky that I was working on some maths related stuff on the side during that previous year.
Right.
And the optionals that I picked when I got back was very much statistics related. So they were kind of within my interests, machine learning, etc. So it helped that the context was a context that I cared about. It was not so much that I came back and fields and algebra like all at once. So it was a little bit. It helped mitigate that, but definitely. Yeah.
So at the end of your first year, did you do something? What did you do in the summer at the end of your first year? Did you do an internship, or did you?
So I had to go back to Portugal because of the pandemic, and I worked at a beach bar for the summer. So that was a DJ / waitress at a beach bar.
But I guess kind of I think sometimes people underestimate the value of doing that kind of casual work, because actually you're dealing with customers sometimes under pressure, and it depends a little bit on the context you're working in, but those kinds of things can actually look good on a CV if you're comparing two people and one's got no experience at all and one's got experience of serving customers in a beach bar. That actually can be a positive thing on a CV. Did you have it on your CV when you were applying?
I don't think I had it on my CV, just because I thought I had other stuff that I could replace it with. I used to teach karate in my high school years, but actually during that summer I ended up having to quit after 3 weeks and maybe a month, because I was having too much fun. It was the other way around. It was the whole customer challenge that you describing was the part that I liked it the most, just to talk to people all day and being able to play music.
Okay.
So I was like, university's coming, and I haven't touched anything computer science related for like this whole time since the year ended. So I gotta quit now and go back to learning a little bit ahead of starting the year. Yeah.
So we come back into second year, and I think you decided at that point to do a placement when you started your second year, or was it something you decided towards the end of the second year?
It was something that I decided since first year, since I applied.
So
I was certain that I wanted to do placement. Yeah, it was one of the milestones that I had in my mind that was justifying the investment that I made in coming to the UK.
Right.
Because there's obviously significant investment that comes in terms of studying abroad. And one of the milestones that I had to tell myself, okay, pit stop number one, this is going on the right path, was to get that placement here. So, yeah.
And did you started applying in I guess in September of your second year in 2020?
2020, yeah.
And what sort of, can you tell us a little bit about any sort of obstacles you faced in finding work and how you overcame those and managed? The other thing I think is balancing the requirements of doing a degree in your second year, which is quite intense, and also trying to find a job and go to interviews and and how did you balance those two things?
I think in a way my memories of that semester is a bit of a blur, just of how traumatic it might have been in a way. But applying for jobs, especially coming was the first time COVID was sort of a thing during application season. It is challenging. I think as a first time applying for places, I didn't have as much of a network that I can say that I have now. So a lot of it was sort of brute force, right?
Yeah.
And managing expectations. I remember being rejected for a position at Lidl, I think, that was working as a manager of some kind or business analyst of some kind.
Right.
And I remember being crushed because like I didn't get into Lidl. Well, what else? Who else is going to get me, right?
Yeah.
So it's just about, when in doubt, keep pushing. That's what a lot of people I think gave up on that year because it was challenging. It just
and
kept
things
pushing.
were moving online, so there was a bit of sort of indecision from companies as to what they didn't know whether these job opportunities they were offering were going to be online or hybrid, or they were going to have to pull them all completely. So there were employers that were pulling, sorry, we can't. You've got a job. Actually, sorry, we can't honour that anymore because things have changed, kind of thing. So there was loads of stuff going on that year to deal with. So you got the job you got was at
Nomura.
Nomura. And so you can tell us a little about what Nomura does and what your role was at Nomura.
Sure. So Nomura is one of the biggest investment banks in Asia, and they have a headquarters in London for the EMEA office. And I joined the cloud computing team. So they were going through a massive program to change most of the infrastructure over to the cloud. But by the time I joined, they already had their own private cloud. But now they were looking into multi-cloud, hybrid cloud sort of approaches, platform as a service type environments, and I jumped straight into the exciting time. So it was a good year to be working there. A lot of things were happening.
Learning a lot of stuff about cloud computing that I guess you hadn't really touched on at that point.
Nothing at all.
Right.
Zero.
Okay, so you were based in London, but you were working online, or was it entirely online, your placement, or was it a mix?
No, it was the first maybe 2 months was online. The initial onboarding was online, but then it came a place that we could go to the office, and there was a rule we had to go once a week.
Right.
But there was a time, to be honest, I spoke with HR. HR was flexible enough about it. And I think HR from Nomura so far has been the best HR I've ever crossed paths with. Props to them. And I remember that because a lot of people didn't want to come to the office because senior employees got so used to working remotely that they really didn't want to go that much.
Right.
So there was a lot of free seats every day. So you, as an intern, you could say, so would you mind if I come more than 1 day a week, even if my team is not coming? And since they would have so many empty bookings during the week, there was months that I went like every day of the week.
Right.
Right.
And when you're in the office, was the office well occupied, or was it sort of because I think the sort of thing, I think when you start a job, you want to be in the office because you want to learn the culture and meet your colleagues, and the opportunities to do that online are a bit limited. You can't really, it's difficult interacting online. But for more senior colleagues, they know everyone already, and they're much more comfortable working remotely. But as a new starter, it's like you really want to be in the office. So were there times when you were in the office and it wasn't as perhaps well, I don't know, attended, shall we say, as you'd have liked, or was it still an enjoyable working environment?
It was definitely enjoyable. I think the difference is in normal times, you could have a passive sort of approach to getting to learn that culture. You can just go, sit down and do your work, and by default, you're going to be immersed in the office environment, right? So you don't really have to put much effort into just learning because by default, you're going to be learning it.
Yeah.
With the office at half capacity and some days your team not being in the office, it does require a little bit more you being proactive. One of the rules that I had was every week I would have to have a coffee chat with someone. A lot of people, not from my team, even different divisions, IB, trading, HR, operations. Just try to get to know the business.
What's HR?
Human resources.
Okay, right. Oh, HR.
HR,
Sorry,
yeah,
right.
sorry.
Okay, I get it. So, I guess did you get like so you have a line manager? Did they offer you mentor, or did you seek out a mentor? I mean, it sounds like you were networking by coffee, basically, and I think that's quite important. Is finding people outside of your team who can mentor you. Some companies have formal mechanisms for doing this, where you will be assigned a mentor from a completely different team. But it sounds like you were doing that.
They also offer that structure, which again I don't. But again, this was my example. I personally, the way I operate best is I make those. I like to find those mentors more organically. So through different iterations of meeting with a lot of people. Obviously, the mentor that they assigned me was quite valuable especially for like admin stuff, right? That you don't really know how to do it. It really comes in hand to have someone senior, but not manager senior, that you can ask for help. But in terms of bigger picture, I think doing your own outreach across the company, across different teams as well. I think maybe I was lucky enough 3-4 months into, a lot of people already knew who I was. So I think that's good, because then you can talk to them more
It definitely
often.
helps if you've made those connections before you need them, right? Because if you're trying to connect with people, and you've got something that you need to do, it changes the relationship a bit. But if you're already talking to people and they know you from coffee beforehand, it kind of sometimes it makes that interaction a bit easier.
Yeah, and I never saw these interactions and these outreaches as sort of those transactional terms. So most people that I actually spoke with, I'm friends with most of them now, and we never actually had any professional relatability in terms of, I need your help for something, you need my help for something, right?
Yeah.
That, especially if you're reaching out to people outside or even technology groups, someone in investment banking, for example, you guys will never cross paths most often work-wise. So it's just nice to show appreciation for what they do and get to learn from their years of experience. So that on all of itself has intrinsic value. So you don't need to think that much ahead, I think.
Yeah, and sort of understanding how the business works as well. It's like understanding how all these moving parts fit together is quite complex. And
it's your first time working, at least in my example, my first time working in a corporate setting. So just trying to get the most out of it and listening to all these stories and going out with these people after work, all of that environment is you don't learn the maybe hard skills through that, but you learn a lot about how the world works, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you've done you did your 12 months at Nomura, I guess it was.
Yeah, 12 months.
You started in June and then finished in
June,
I guess.
Yeah.
And you, what did you do? Something the following summer? What happened after Nomura?
So for the summer, I had two options. I could have stayed at Nomura for the rest of the summer before coming back to university.
They offered an extension.
They offer an extension, which is quite common at Nomura. Again, best HR department. But I had also applied to a few jobs. I got a few offers for the summer, and one of them was at AWS, so Amazon Web Services, and that's what I ended up doing for the summer, is in tech sales, which is actually completely different from the hands-on technical work. I went to do tech sales for their business, basically.
Speaking to customers.
Well, we would shadow calls as an intern in the summer. You shadow calls with your mentor, but you get to do a lot of sales simulations. So your mentor and other grads that are already there full time would simulate the environment of being clients with a specific sort of problem set, and you jump on the call as a AWS representative, and then you move on from there.
And you're offering a solution, or what's your task as you're shadowing the call?
Yeah.
Well,
when you're shadowing the call, you're just mostly learning, right? But I think it's different from what a lot of people associate sales to be, because most of these SaaS platforms and like cloud platforms, their billing process is actually ongoing. So it's not like you're selling vacuum cleaners and it's a one-off, right? So it always felt more like you're doing consulting than you probably like doing sales, right? Because your idea and your goal is always to solve the client's problem in the best way possible, and you don't need to think about trying to increase the revenue of Amazon, or it's not their mentality. Like, we want to find the best possible solution for you, even if it's not the most profitable for us immediately, because we believe on the long-term value of relationships with our customers, which makes my life as a salesman way more interested, because I don't have to think about all those constraints. So I'm can actually give you the best technical solution possible.
So I guess on it's technical because you have to understand the solution that you're proposing or recommending to your customer, but you're not actually writing any code or getting deep down and dirty with architecture or deployment or anything like that.
Well, the job definition would not entitle that, but I did some of it just because well, we did a lot of, for example, one example is we do a lot of outreaching, right? So finding LinkedIn profiles of people that work at companies that could potentially turn out to be customers, right? And a lot of the steps that are involved in outreaching are quite manual. So I just built a Python crawler to help automate that, and was a sort of a side project that I worked while I was there.
Right.
So they give you a lot of freedom to be as technical as you want, right? You can learn as much as we can talk with solution architects and get to learn it properly, but the majority of the interns actually don't come from a technical background, so they can have studied geography, history, business, maybe business and technology, some computer science, but it's not the majority. So
that, and it's interesting you mentioned solutions architects. I don't know, do you know Ivo? You probably don't know. So Ivo was a guest previously, and he was a solutions architect. That was his summer internship or placement, I can't remember which. So is a different, being a technical salesperson is different to being a solutions architect, is that right? Can you explain a little bit about the difference between those two roles?
So my role in specific was demand generation, which means for the first maybe year or two when you join as a graduate, what you do is you deal mostly with SMB, so small and medium businesses. And you do the first outreaching to the client, you do the first approach, but then you pass it on when the account starts to become a little bit more mature, you'd pass it on to an account manager.
Okay.
Right? So in terms of the way teams will be organized, obviously it can be by sector, territory, but usually you'd have account manager, which is the normal tech sales track, the less technical person that manages the accounts and the relationship with the customers. And then you'll have the solution architects that have the more deep dives with the customer on the actual problems, right? But the first point of contact would always be the account manager.
Right. Okay.
So there's a lot of synergies, but usually you have a solution architect that kind of works with multiple account managers.
Yeah.
So he's associated with multiple accounts.
So that's interesting, because all of those roles you've talked about, they're account manager, solutions architect, and a technical salesperson. I think sometimes students don't realize that as a computer scientist, these kind of technical but not necessarily coding kind of roles are an option, because people tend to think, oh, computer science, you're going to be a software engineer, end of. But there's a wide variety of things that you can get involved in, as you're saying right at the beginning. Why would you study computer sciences? I guess you'd have that insight into knowing that all these different kinds of roles and responsibilities are things that you can do as a computer scientist.
I think that's also related to how I ended up getting that internship, or how I thought about applying to it. Because while I was working at Nomura, the cloud team that I was working in, we were customers of AWS. So I was working on the buy side of the whole transaction process. So I got to go to the conferences. I got the chance to speak with the account managers from AWS, right? The solution architects from AWS, from the perspective of the customer. And I could see how my manager at Nomura and the rest of the team would interpret those relationships and what feedback they would get from each call. So I found that, this is some really cool insight that I think most salespeople don't have because they've never been on this side. So I thought, let me try to reverse the roles, and for the summer, I'm going to go from the buy side to the sell side of that transaction, which was quite of a change.
Was it easier to get, I mean, had you always planned on doing a summer internship after your placement, or was it something that came up during your placement year? You're like, oh, actually, I'd like to work on the other side of the fence, or was it something you'd always intended to do?
In specific, the sales role was kind of came up through time while being in Nomura. I always knew I wanted to fill up that summer. I just didn't know if it was going to be with an extension at Nomura or with some other job. I got an offer as a normal software engineer job for the summer, but I thought the sales one would be more of a diversity of experience, I would call it.
And I think it's good to have that diversity of experience, because you don't want to get what's the word, typecast as you are one of these. I think early on in your career it's very good to move around and try different roles, so that firstly you understand what all those roles involve, but also you work out what's best for you, because it's not always the first job you're going to spend the rest of your life doing that.
And that's true. And I also think that it's very important to have the level of self-awareness to understand where your weaknesses and strengths lie. And most people say you should focus on where your strengths are. I like to think kind of the opposite.
Right.
So the way, for example, I'll give you an example. I wouldn't do the other way around. I wouldn't do a placement of 12 months of tech sales and only 3 months of software development. because I already know that I'm more inclined to feel more comfortable in social environment, the sales environment. So that's a strength that I have. My technical knowledge was zero when I came to uni. So if I gotta allocate that time to build that diversity and like making myself well-rounded, I'm not gonna do 12 months, the majority of the time, of something that I'm already good at, and then only 3 months at bringing my weaknesses up, right? So you gotta also take that into consideration, how you allocate that time to explore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So go for the weaknesses. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Or,
level
or
up.
Look at building
Level
your
up.
weaknesses.
Yeah. Well, Naval's which is related to the book recommendation I bring today. But there's this really good quote that he says, "If you can build and you can sell, you're pretty much unstoppable."
Yeah.
So just think about which one you're not the best at yet. In my case, I was not as good as I wanted to be at building, but I was already quite okay at selling. Right. Not the other way around. If you find yourself in the other way around, if you've been coding since you're 10 and you can build something like this, then maybe go explore something that makes you talk with the customer a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So you had a pretty packed 2 years then. You've got the pandemic, you've got the 3 years, isn't it now? Because you've done 2 years of undergraduate study and you've done a year in industry at Nomura and then a summer internship at AWS. You come back to final year, so can you tell us a little bit about your experience of this last year has been, and also what you did for your project?
Sure. So actually, during all this time that I was working at Nomura and at AWS, I also for about a year, I was working at a startup as a co-founder. So I also had that to keep me busy,
right.
And also got to meet a lot of interesting people in my spare time. Because I think work once we get to the work life, it's like uni, right? There is a framework on how to succeed, right? Obviously, it takes hard work, but I think the interesting part is finding out how that framework works, like that pattern. Once you figure it out, yes, there is small changes that you make throughout your career, but it's pretty much more or less the same, right? The framework that I still hadn't explored yet was entrepreneurship. So it's like, okay, let's do this as well to see how it goes. And through that, I ended up meeting a lot of interesting people, and one of them were part of a startup in Tokyo that actually sponsored my third year project. So I was excited to come back to university because I knew that it wasn't just going to be university. I wanted something extra because I was already used to have so much going on at the same time. Then coming back and just do university, I think I was like, okay, I don't think I'm seeing myself doing only that again. So my project was done within the context of an internship for a startup in Tokyo.
So you proposed the project in collaboration, sort of you rather than, so there's for people who don't know, there's two basic ways of picking a final year project at this university and many other universities, where you can propose your own project or you can pick one that's been proposed by an academic member of staff. So in this case, you proposed your own, and then found a supervisor who would supervise it.
Yeah, exactly. So from the university perspective, I approached them already with a project in mind, but my proposal was sort of drafted together with the company, so something that they would find useful. So my actual input was not little, but because I liked what they proposed, so they proposed something, and then I proposed to university. So I pretty much just broke a deal between them both, and.
So who was your supervisor for that project? It was
Professor Nwang.
Right.
And again, big props to Professor Nwang that really helped me throughout that time. And she was brave enough to accept a project that was not directly in an area of expertise, completely different from the other projects that she was mentoring this year. And she was a great supervisor. So whatever mark I end up getting, I think is mostly thanks to her.
Yeah, good. And so tell us a little bit about what the project was and what you did.
Sure. So again, just a little bit more context. The startup in Tokyo in specific, they work in machine learning and artificial intelligence solutions for sustainability problems, basically. So they work with Japanese government and Japanese corporations in building automation tools and AI for sustainability, education, all these types of less sort of just for profit applications of AI. And one of their concerns and one of their obstacles on a daily basis was to keep up with all of this new research, especially, ChatGPT coming on, and just the speed of new papers being released was so fast. And they didn't find that they had a lack of sort of market fit for a product that would allow them to be sort of more like Twitter or Instagram, for example, that you can just scroll through new stuff, new posts, right? You don't want to see the first post that Cristiano Ronaldo published 2010, even though it might have been the most liked one. You want to see something recent, right? Same thing with academic papers. They don't really care about the most relevant paper in the field. They care about the most interesting ones in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. So the time frame has to be a little bit shorter. So that was sort of the project, to build a recommendation system with that specific set of constraints.
So people would be reading a paper and sort of tweeting it, but not tweeting it within a corporate environment, I guess. So within the confines of the company, or would it be within the confines of their clients?
Only within the company. But actually, there was a client that they had that is actually currently exploring the idea, or an adaptation of the idea, to commercialize, to make it actual product that they can sell to the public. But yeah, so the idea is to replace that user flow that you can have on a Twitter, and you can just scroll through papers on your way to work. Make it passive, right? When I open Instagram, I don't really know what I'm going to look for. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking to be entertained.
Browsing.
Right? So they want to be entertained, but in a proactive way, in which the content they're looking for or they're reading through is kind of relevant to their fields of work.
Right. So you built this recommendation system, and how was the experience of doing that? Did you enjoy that? It was sounds like it was quite a challenging job, because it was not just an academic project in the sense of, well, let's see what we can do with this. It was more of a, this is something our customer would actually quite like, something that's a bit like this.
Yeah, definitely. I think I also tried to make it as academic as possible, just so I could understand and take the opportunity to dive deep into recommendation systems and how they work. I think it's a fascinating world. Most of the things we use nowadays every day is like based on recommendation on search engines, right? But it was definitely challenging. I think I was lost for the first maybe a couple months trying to paint just a visual picture of how the field works. But to be honest, that's one of the things that uni taught me. Just I'm not expecting to know something prior to start working on it. I don't think until now I've actually started a project that I knew more than 50% about what I'm going to do. So I think you get pretty used to it through uni, so you're not that scared about it.
You get good at learning how to learn, right?
Yeah.
So that it's not any specific knowledge you have. The skill is like diving into a completely new field that you may know nothing about, and making sense of that environment and trying to achieve some goal, whatever that might be.
Once you do it once or twice, at some point it's just like been there, done that, right? So you just know, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a pain, and I might not be as motivated at the first few weeks because a lot of friction between what I'm trying to learn. But you know that eventually it's going to click, and when it clicks, then it just sort of snowballs from there, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So that's finally a project, and you've literally just, well, I say your last exam was
less than 24 hours ago. Actually, it would start at 2 p.m. today.
So you're kind of just coming down from, I've finished my degree now, I've done my exams, and what comes next? What are your plans for the summer and beyond?
Yeah, it's still a bit of a question mark. So I'm okay, maybe not as much of a question mark, but I'm starting. I'm gonna keep working with the startup in Tokyo full time for the summer only, starting in a couple of weeks. And this time I'm gonna have a chance to actually work within one of their product teams, because this project was quite silent in the sense that, well, I was a one-man army working on it, and now I'm gonna have a chance to actually learn from them directly, working side by side. And I got news 2 weeks ago that I got a conditional offer to keep learning and follow this process and go to Cambridge for another year of masters. So if everything goes according to plan, that's what I will be going to on October.
An MPhil or a PhD?
It's an MPhil,
so
which
could lead to
a PhD, which is something I have in mind, especially in the field that I'm going to explore. So I'll keep that as an open door.
I mean, that field of research you talk about, sort of, are we talking about generative AI? Is that your interest, or is it broader than that?
It is actually machine learning systems. So they have one of the biggest sort of machine learning systems group in Europe, probably the world. So I love this idea of intersection between machine learning and distributed systems, right? Because I think it's the sweet spot between turning all of this theory into actually applications that can be used, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the motivations was I feel like all of these models and these theoretical concepts that we're now achieving, well, those models with trillions of parameters, right? I think at some point they might have surpassed the engineering capability, in the sense that it's not feasible to buy more land and build more data centers in order to support all of this innovation. So there got to be some systems engineering that we got to do to make these machine learning models more accessible to everyone. Everybody can work on it.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting problem there is that I was reading the other day that these, there's a huge cost in running ChatGPT, but all these large language models, is that the computational cost is vast, and okay, some of that can be recovered with a subscription fee, but it's not sustainable because you need to find either cheaper ways of doing it, or quicker ways of doing it, or ways that that aren't going to be so costly computationally. That's a quite interesting problem.
Because ideally, you don't want theoretical innovation to be kept by how applicable it is, right? So if every time a researcher is trying to solve a problem, and you got to think, okay, but in order for us to actually test this live, we'll need an environment that comes with X amount of cost, right? So the more accessible you make it to everyone, the easier it will be, right? I think it's part of if you look back at maybe the dot-com bubble, right? Some of the companies that survived the most was not the ones that actually had an end-user approach to it and product, but the ones that invested in the infrastructure that supports all the other companies. So the Qualcomms, the AMDs, so people that build these chips, build the telecommunication channel. So there's a next generation of AI systems and infrastructure, right? That gotta be built in order to support all of these projects, right? Because they might fail or might succeed, but regardless if a project that is built on top of it fails or succeeds, it still needs whatever you come up with.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So that sounds good. So you've finished your degree. Are you coming to graduation next month? I guess.
Hopefully.
Maybe. Hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully.
So
Yeah.
We'll hopefully see you at graduation. If we could, there's a few other questions I ask all our guests. So the first one is minority report. So we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. Are there any minority groups that you're a part of, and what's your experience been of being part of that minority? How can the university, and perhaps employers as well, make being a member of a minority group a better experience?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so obviously coming from Portugal, I don't the normal common minority groups that people might think about. I don't belong to any of them. But a curious fact though that we started seeing in the last few years is since Brexit, right? I will speak specifically for the numbers of Portugal and Portuguese students, but I imagine you can generalize for the rest of Europe.
As a European,
as a European, right? The numbers of Portuguese students that came, I think, this year to university was like maybe sub 10. Right, so
is that's across the whole university?
I think so.
Right.
I think so.
Okay, that'll alarm go off in a minute. So I can edit this bit out. So let's just wait until it finishes. Phew. Right. Okay. So so not so many Portuguese students in the university as a whole, but also as a member of the European Union, that's become less represented over time.
Well, it is natural there will be if there is not a financial initiative to come here, right? Again, I'm only here because I got the funding. If I didn't get the student loans, I would definitely not be here, and I cannot even imagine what I'll be doing now. Something completely different. But so I think that's definitely gonna be a challenge, and I think the UK will sooner or later realize that through time as less and less students come. And basically saying goodbye to less and less talent at some point, right? Because the average European student cannot afford to pay abroad tuition. That just it's the reality of Europe, right?
Yeah. So I think especially with EU students coming to the UK, they're not just coming here to study; they're coming here to work as well. Exactly. And I guess that was part. You'd already decided. Sorry, you'd already decided. Before you came to university, you wanted to do a placement. So I guess part of the attraction of studying in the UK was the opportunity to work in the UK as well. Yeah, it was definitely not to go back to Portugal immediately. So UK as a stepping stone, but hopefully in the future working more places globally. So that's out of the European bubble in some sense. So apart from financial incentives, is there anything else that the university could do to make the university a better environment for students from the European Union? To be honest, I don't really think I don't think that really matters much. If you can put as many European Union flags you want across campus, if we don't have the funds to come, at least the loans to come, we won't be able to. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. Good. All right. So the next one is. I want you to imagine you're the next Vice-Chancellor. So the Vice-Chancellor of the University, Nancy Rothwell, is coming to the end of her term next year. I've just appointed you Vice-Chancellor, and what would you do? What would be the first thing you'd do to improve the university for students if you had the power and the responsibility to do so?
Well, that's a
Big
tricky
question.
one, right? That's a big question. Public office. You might set me up for election. I think one of the factors that I found the weirdest coming to university, there's two things. One thing is I feel like this whole notion that a good researcher is a good lecturer. That's, I think, any logic person can assume that one does not imply the other. So again, too much credibility of a lot of the professors that I had, they might be some of the brightest academics in the field. That doesn't really mean that you can teach, right? And I don't really, and again, I'm not really sure if there is any process of evaluation from the university side to see if a person is qualified to also teach.
There's more than there used to be.
There's more than used to be.
There's more that could be done.
There's more that could be done. But sometimes I'm not saying that you got to filter out people because they can't teach. Because, well, first and foremost, how you qualify what is the ability to teach, right? But I'm pretty sure the university could sponsor courses before a person becomes a lecturer on teaching skills, right? Education is a whole field, so give a little bit of actual education to the lecturers beforehand. So that's one that I would do. I think that's the most common critique that I hear across the student body for the whole 4 years. And I'm not seeing that changing anytime soon, but hopefully one day. And another one is regarding the format of exams and how we come from and I understand because there's a lot of different courses, so there's a lot of different exams, but we come from an high school perspective in which when we study for our exams in high school, same with A-levels here, the format of the exam. You can see past papers of the exam with solutions. You can see the marking scheme for exams. And it's mandatory that the country does that for every student, right? Here, it is up to each lecturer to be as flexible or not with what he provides, right?
So navigating that space is challenging because you don't know what the expectations are, and expectations on each course are going to be slightly different.
I think it's unnecessary ambiguity around what to expect from an exam. And I never understood why you cannot post past paper. I think in a way you don't want to give away the answers from previous papers, sort of to save yourself some time, some critical thinking on how to build a better exam this year, because you can reuse a lot of other components. But if you think about it, it just makes it's a bit of a hell for life for a student, and
stressful.
It is stressful and unnecessary because it doesn't mean that he's no more or less, right? He doesn't really know what to know in order to succeed at the exam.
Yeah, definitely. That's two good suggestions then. So the first suggestion is to improve the sort of training of there is a new academics program, but that can always be better, I think, in that making sure that people who are good at research can also teach or know how that should be done. And then the other one about exam format. That's not come up before. That's quite an interesting one. The next one is we have a coders playlist, so all of our guests recommend a piece of music that goes onto the coders playlist alongside a podcast, a book, and a film. So which tune would you like to add to the coders playlist, and can you say a little bit about why it's important to you?
All right, maybe I cannot give a specific tune right now. There's nothing come up to mind, but I can give a music type, a music style.
Music type, yeah.
And it's actually quite specific. It only exists in Portugal, I think. It's called Fado. It spells Fado. And if you've ever been to Lisbon, you can see it all across town, right? It's part of our identity. And Fado is sort of, I don't really know how to describe it. It's a mix between jazz, blues, and maybe some opera, right? I don't really know what to reference it with in terms of more popular mainstream music.
Is it like I mentioned this today because Astrid Gilberto, she was a famous a Portuguese song, died recently, and it was a big hit in the '60s, but it's a massive hit. Is it sort of like bossa nova, samba kind of style, or is it something a bit different?
I don't want to say more dramatic, but with a little bit more. It's sort of a bossa nova, but a little bit more
contemporary,
more older, even older, like more sad. The songs are supposed to be is always about most songs in Portuguese fado, a lot of them at least I think are about saudade. Saudade is a word that has no translation to English, but basically is the feeling of missing something or missing someone. Right. We don't in English. I don't think you actually have a word as a noun to describe what that is. You can just say I miss something, but as a verb, right? So a lot of it is more sad than bossa nova. I wouldn't listen to fado to do a little bit of dancing at home while I clean.
Okay, fado. We'll put that. We'll add. Maybe I'll do some research about the genre. Maybe we can add a sort of an archetypal.
I'll give some
style.
recommendations after.
We'll
I can go on my phone.
Good,
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then the other one is one podcast. I think you mentioned before that you do listen to quite a lot of podcasts.
So many. That's a tough.
Are there any
question
that you're particularly enjoying at the moment?
All right, I can tell you. I can give you my weekly ones, the ones I also listen to. So, this week on Startups by Jason Calacanis, if I'm not wrong. That's a great podcast. Just beautiful to stay up to date. It's like 45 minutes, an hour long. Sometimes amazing guests. So that's great. Once a week, he partners up with some of his friends that are like some of the big VC investment people ever, and he does a podcast called All In, which I think comes out every Saturday.
Right.
And that's more in depth about the topics. They also have guests, but they're a very smart group. Everybody. One of them was a VP at Google. The other one as a VC firm. So it's just these high caliber people talking about whatever they want to talk about. To be honest.
Yeah.
But the ones I love to hear the most, to be honest, are Brilliant Idiots with Charlemagne the God and Andrew Schultz.
Right.
Andrew Schultz, the comedian.
What's that about?
Comedy, just
Okay.
what's going on in the world, but
Okay.
from a sense of no sensibility, just say whatever you want to say.
Right.
And Flagrant 2, which another podcast by Andrew Schultz. Flagrant
2.
Yeah, Flagrant. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. So that's actually.
That's my comedy. Most of my podcasts are comedy.
And there's one book. Any book that you'd recommend that other students read that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, so I really don't want to butcher his name, but the one that I read most recently, and I think I should have read it a long time ago, and I'm going to repeat it, is the Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Okay.
So it's just basically a compilation of a lot of quotes and thoughts from Naval. Naval is again, another legendary VC. He's the founder of AngelList, and a writer, and Tim Ferriss actually as well collaborated in writing this book. It's just a condensed way of his philosophical ideas about wealth and happiness.
Right.
And
I've come across Tim Ferriss before.
Tim Ferriss has a podcast. He's the author of the 4-Hour Week.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. And then last but not least, one film.
Oh, one film.
It might be something you've seen recently, if you can't, or it could be something you saw ages ago and you think is classic.
Training Day.
Right. What's that about?
Training Day.
I've not seen it.
You never seen Training Day?
No.
Denzel Washington making a great role. It's I think I don't want to give it away, but the moral is to understand when to say no.
Right.
Be accept the fact that you're skeptical and you're critic of things, and don't just play along with it because you feel like you have to. Right. Because sometimes it just might be too late until you realize. Right. Just don't be afraid to say no, regardless of what you think that can impact.
Right.
You and your life. So
that's good advice. And
Duncan, I can't believe you've never seen Training Day. That's outrageous.
Did you say it's got Denzel Washington in it?
Yeah,
right?
it's like from what, 2000, 2001?
No, I've not seen it. I usually like Denzel Washington films, so I'll make sure I go and see that. The last one then, following on from the advice, is I've built a time travel machine for you, and I want to imagine that you can transport yourself back to 2019, 4 years ago when you started your degree. What advice would you offer your former self about getting the most? I mean, sounds like you've got a lot out of being at university. What advice would you offer your former self and perhaps fellow students about making the most of your quite short time at university? It's probably flown by like that.
Yeah. I think when in doubt, keep pushing. That's what I would say. When you're in doubt if this is the right thing or not, just keep pushing, because either the pushing will make it clear that it's not the right thing, or it will just turn out to be the good thing. So when you are in doubt, it's because you're not really sure if is this what I want or not. So just keep pushing until it's clear. Right? It's not to just go down that same route, but keep going until you make sure that it's clear.
So it's kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit, being uncomfortable with uncertainty, I suppose, and just kind of going with it a little bit.
When in doubt, because I think we have a tendency to overcalculate everything at some point, right? We try to rationalize decisions, and we try to make sometimes just stick to the plan. I had a plan when I came. I was in doubt a lot of times throughout it, right? Especially first and second year before I got that placement, and I think if I could go back, just say, look, I don't really know how it's going to play out, but in doubt, just keep pushing.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good advice. So I'm going to say thank you, Pedro, for joining us today. And good luck with the next steps. Good luck with the internship in Tokyo. Sounds great. I mean, so you'll actually get some time, hopefully, to go and visit.
Hopefully, a week or two. I'm
having worked for a Japanese bank and worked for this company. It might be nice to actually
go to Japan at some point. Yeah.
So good luck with that, and good luck with further study plans for further study in the future.
I appreciate it.
Thanks again for coming.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Hearing Your Future, the Coding Your Future podcast. You can find out more about this episode and all the other episodes, including full transcripts and show notes at cdyf.me. That's Charlie Delta Yankee Foxtrot Mike Echo. You can also find us on all the major podcast platforms by searching for Coding Your Future. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you found something useful to help you start coding your future today.